So I first want to spend some time talking about what sales and what marketing really is. What is the difference? A lot of times we hear about those two words and, you have movie images of what salespeople do, always be closing from Glenn Ross, Glenn Carey, these funny movies where people are always knocking down on doors and the used car salesman stereotype. And I have to be honest, sales is really about being yourself, and it's truly about having a conversation. During the course of a conversation, you're seriously listening more than you're talking for a long time, because you really want to understand a person and their needs before you start talking about what you can provide. You want a person to feel like you care about them. And sales is all about trust. In fact, most of business is all about trust. I think one of the main objectives anyone should have, from my perspective, is you want your employer to trust you. You want them to trust you're going to do a great job, maybe exceed expectations. And if the chips fall, they can depend on you. So what is the difference between marketing and sales? Does anyone wish to offer an answer? I'll stop here. It's okay to be quiet.
Is it maybe the difference between like marketing identifying and versus someone in a sales role actually executing?
Yeah, that's actually part of it. That's a good answer. I appreciate that. So marketing would be from a 100,000-foot level in an airplane. Sales might be from a 10,000-foot level, if that makes sense. So you're marketing, you're mapping it out. You're seeing where you should be. Sales would drop. We would parachute into those territories, if you want to use an Army sort of military analogy, and you would parachute, you would deploy those to those different, and they would do their job in alignment with what marketing's identified. Does that make sense? Okay. Does anyone else have anything else to offer, maybe, from your experience? Okay, no problem. So the whole idea behind sales and marketing, and then I'll talk about support roles like HR after that, is to identify the target customer. And why is that important? It's important because you want efficiency in both sales and marketing. You don't have endless resources. So if you have, 5 people and you have a budget of $10,000, you really need to be as effective as possible with that resource allocation. The way to be effective is to have a process. And the process is very much like problem solving, like anything else you guys have ever done. So on the marketing side, on the left-hand side, you're identifying what your users look like, what industries they're in. Take a look at the company TurboTax or Intuit, which my sister is a senior vice president for. She's in marketing. She's been there for 18 years. What does she do? She looks at what products will meet consumer demand, what the problems are that the consumers have, are there commercial products. And I'll take, for example, a product that's dying that she was the head of the product team for. It was the checks product, where you actually will have checks issued on your behalf. Well, nobody hardly ever writes checks anymore. We have PayPal, we have Venmo, we have Zelle. And so, you have markets that are dying, you have markets that are brand new, you have markets that are in transition, and then you have markets that can be developed. So that's what marketing does. They research the price, they research the product, they research the landscape and the competition, and they're really generating what's called a pull strategy. So you can attract customers by either pulling, people to your website, to your product, generating a need, or you can do a push strategy, which is a lot of times what sales is doing. We're pushing the idea out to someone and getting them interested. Now, marketing is going to effectively measure their effectiveness with response rates, clicks on social media links, requests for information, trade shows, conferences, generating demand, and really just generating a large list of contacts. Marketing is going to be successful if they generate not only requests, but also a list of contacts every single company that's doing sales and marketing has a database, and that's a huge, huge piece of how effective customers will be reached and how companies are generating a connection with that customer. That database is huge. So marketing is filling that database, it's scrubbing the database, and constantly trying to figure out, where they can add more people. On the sales side, it's more tactical. You're looking at, okay, we have a company, let's say it's Allergan, biotech company, and now we know that they need our product. We have identified what they want. We need to see who the decision makers are. It's a lot more microscopic. What is their budget? What is their urgency? And let's say I have 1,000 of those targets. I have 1,000 companies I want to call. Who do I call first? Do I just randomly go through from A to Z? Or do I have a ranking system in which I can figure out which one is the most important to call, because I think that will have a higher probability to close. In sales, you're measured by your performance of closing sales. And if you haven't heard this before, if you have to sell, let's say, just a random number, let's say you have to sell $100,000 worth of product by the end of May. Oftentimes, you have to have what's called a pipeline or a funnel. It's called a sales funnel. You have to have 3 times that many people who could possibly buy in order for 1/3 of those people to actually close. So if I have $100,000 of goal, I might have to really, really push hard and make sure I have in my funnel, in my forecast, $300,000 worth. So whatever that is, if it's $100,000, which could be maybe 20 companies that I think are going to close, maybe I have to have actually 60 companies in the month of May to really be able to factor in chance, luck, COVID probabilities so that I can actually reach that close of 100,000. So in sales, it's about volume and it's about predicting how big your pipeline needs to be to counter all of the forces that you cannot control, because there are many forces you cannot control despite your best efforts. So people will talk about their sales pipeline. People will talk about how much of the pipeline you need in order to be able to close your expected rates. And I would also say that regarding the effort of sales, you want to identify what's called the ideal customer profile. I will get clients that want my product and they have absolutely no way to buy it, and I'll just have to kick them out. Somehow kick them out of my pipeline or divert them, or very politically correctly redirect them to somewhere else. Maybe my competition, I'd just like to dump them. So my competition gets this person who wastes all their time, and then I can move on to someone that's good. So sales and marketing, those are the 2 types, and I'm sure you've studied them, in class. Sales is a lot of strategy, but sales is about having a conversation. So again, I want to emphasize that marketing, you can be analytical, you can be problem solving, you can even not have to talk to a lot of people. But in sales, it's mano y mano. I mean, one-on-one. You are talking with someone on the phone, you are meeting with them via Zoom, even if you're remotely working from home. So does anyone have questions